We're making the most delicious crispy skin chicken today, starting off with a full breakdown of a whole chicken, then using the carcass to make a broth. And that broth is absolutely incredible. It's reduced down, so much flavor comes out of it, just goes perfectly with a dish like this. And we're also making a creamy buttery mash and serving it with some greens.
Starting out with roasting our potatoes for mash, so on a tray line a little bit of rock salt. It's going to help extract moisture and create a nice soft fluffy center for our potatoes. I'm using 5 potatoes for this recipe, and we can place these in the oven to bake at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour and 15 minutes. Now I'm going to do a different style of cut for the chicken breast today. We're actually making a chicken supreme, so we're going to be breaking down a whole chicken carcass. What we want to do is slice between the joint of the flat and the drum, pop it back so that the drum bone is visible, and then just slice in between that and separate the drum from the flat, and that drum is still connected to the chicken breast. We then want to remove the thigh and the leg. If you look closely, there is a line of fat. You just want to slice against that. It's going to help open it up, and then I'm just peeling a little bit of the skin back just so I can see more clearly where I need to cut. You will notice that the chicken does have layers of fat around it. These are usually the cutting points, and it actually makes it quite easy to butcher down a chicken. Flip this over so that the breasts are on the chopping board. Then we want to cut through that big pocket of skin. Slice straight through that, bringing the knife up, and then just scoop out the oyster, which is a really nice piece of meat. Pop the bone so it separates, and then just continue follow along with your knife and slice in between that and attach that thigh and the leg. Once you have that done, do it on the other side as well. Go up the back, scoop out that oyster, dislocate the joint, and then slice straight through it. And right there is our 2 legs and 2 thighs. Moving on to the breasts, you want to feel that kill bone, or the bone that's in the center of the 2 breasts. We want to slice as close as possible to that on either side, depending on what hand you are. We'll start first on the right side because I'm right-handed. All we're doing now is just using our knife to do the work and follow the carcass down to open it up, trying to remove as much flesh as possible. It doesn't matter too much for this recipe because we are using the whole thing, but obviously you want those chicken breasts to be nice and big. And what I'm pointing to there is the bone that we left in from that drum. We want to slice in towards the carcass and then back out again just to get through the middle of that joint. Might take a little bit of time to locate that joint, but just go through, don't force your knife through it and snap the bone. And if I'm being honest, it's been a very long time since I've actually done this, and I'm surprised I can still remember doing it. Now once you have all of that done, we're left with our carcass, our wings and the tip still attached, the thigh and the leg pieces, and then we also have our chicken supreme, which is the breast with the drum still attached. And like I said, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. With the carcass, I'm using a cleaver. I'm just going to start breaking this down. Really be careful here. Do not put your fingers in the way of it and just use one hand at a time. You can only use the other hand if you need to guide something, but do not chop down when your hands are in the way. We want to break this down into small, even-sized pieces. That way it will cook in the pan at the same rate, and just chop up any little bits that there might be. You might have to use a little bit of extra force to go through any bones. And like I said, just be really careful. I really don't want to hear that you've chopped your fingers off. I will also say, if you don't want to do any of this, you can just buy regular chicken breasts or ask your butcher to do it. I'm sure they're happy to do it for you. One other thing is I have no use for the rest of the chicken. If you do, save it, use it for something else. Those Marylands or the thighs and the drums are fantastic for other dishes, but I am just going to chop all of this up. It's going to get extra flavor in our broth. And again, all of this is completely optional. And if you do have any leftovers, just chuck them in the freezer and use them for when you need them. Once you have that done, make sure you clean up the kitchen really well. There's no chicken residue anywhere on the board or even over your work surface. We're then going to chop up 2 brown or yellow onions. Try and be consistent with the size. And I know I always say save it for a stock, but this time we're actually using it for a stock. So keep all of the scraps. It's going all in for a little bit of extra flavor. Along with that, we also need 1 bulb of garlic. Simply slice it in half, and that's all we need to do. Place a large high-rimmed pan or pot over a high heat. Add in about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil, then add in all of the chicken scraps. If you're using the carcass, just add that in, but I'm adding the whole chicken in like I said before. Hit it up with a little bit of salt and then just start cooking this. We're going to cook it for about 5 to 6 minutes until that chicken has browned off. You'll start seeing a little bit of the fat render as well as any moisture start to evaporate. And when there is a bit of color on there, we can start adding in the onions, the garlic, adding in about 3 sprigs of rosemary and 6 sprigs of thyme, 5 grams of black peppercorns, 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar, 1/4 cup of dry white wine. If you can't consume alcohol, you can add some chicken stock to this. And we are also adding in chicken stock as well, just to increase the flavor, and that's 2 cups worth. With that all in, give it a good mix through, make sure everything's covered in the liquid. It's not going to be completely covered, but make sure the herbs and the garlic are. Then bring this up to a boil, reduce the heat to low, and allow this to simmer for about 35 minutes, and just spoon off any impurities that may float to the top. If you watched my lamb shanks video recently, you'll know that I used Swiss chard, also known as silverbeet in Australia. It is absolutely delicious, and I also had a bit of excess, so I'm using it again. The preparation for this is to remove the stem and only use the leaves. You are more than welcome to use the stem if you want to, and I recommend slicing the leaves into quarters. When they're cooked, they will cook down to be quite small. Also with the silverbeet, we're going to be frying it off in a little bit of garlic, so grate 2 cloves on a microplane to create a paste. Now going back to our potatoes, they've been cooking away for an hour and 15 minutes. When you insert a knife, it comes out clean. Allow them to cool for a little bit until you're able to handle them, then slice them in half. And we are going to mash these with the skin on, but the skin will be removed with the potato ricer that I have. If you don't have a potato ricer, I do recommend removing the skin, just because we want to get that silky smooth mash. But I know some people like the skin in, so it's up to you. However you decide to mash them, just place them into a bowl, make sure you get as much potato out of those skins as possible, and with any leftover skins, you can just fry these up with a little bit of oil, do them in the oven in a pan, and they create delicious crispy potato skins. To the mash, I'm adding 200 grams or 7 ounces of unsalted butter that's been softened, 2 tablespoons of full cream milk, and then just mix all of that together until that butter melts through and the milk helps loosen it up a little bit. You don't have to use as much butter if you don't want to, but trust me when I say this mash is the best mash you'll ever have. I do also want to clarify that some people get funny about it, but you're not eating this every day, treat yourself. I am going a step further with the mash and putting it through a fine mesh sieve, then using a spatula just to push that through. This is going to eliminate any remaining lumps that there may be in there. The potato rice is not going to be perfect. I know some people don't like that silky smooth mash, so this is just an optional thing. I'm doing it because I love it and it goes perfect with this recipe. At this stage, we can adjust the consistency, seasoning levels, and I know I used unsalted butter and then added salt. The reason for that and why I do it in pretty much all of my recipes is so I can control the seasoning and use a better quality salt than most manufacturers do. After any final adjustments, mix everything through. You have this beautiful silky mash that we can cover and keep warm until we're ready to serve. And if you need to reheat it, just place it back in a saucepan over a low heat. Our broth has been cooking away for about 35 minutes. Remove it from the stovetop and pour it through a fine mesh sieve into a saucepan. Be sure to get as much liquid out of it as possible. We don't want to waste any of it. And be careful not to get any of those solids in there, otherwise you will have to strain it again because we want this to be as smooth as possible. Discard any scraps, or if you have a use for them, go for it. And what we're left with is this rich gravy or broth that's ready to be reduced down over a medium-high heat. Bring it up to a simmer and then reduce it to low and let this cook and reduce while we do everything else. Going back to our chicken supremes, pat them down as best as you can with some paper towel. Make them as dry as possible as moisture will kill texture and we're looking for that nice crispy skin. Season them well with salt only on that skin side. Then place a pan over a high heat. Add in 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Add the chicken in skin side down. And we're going to sear this for about 3 to 4 minutes until that golden crust is formed. We can also season the bottom of the chicken with a little bit of salt and cracked black pepper. And I do recommend having your extractor fan on the max, your windows open, and take the batteries out of your smoke alarm for this because it does get smoky and you do want that hot heat in the pan to get that crust. Once you have that done, flip it over, then place it into the oven at 180°C or 350°F and bake for about 14 minutes. For our silverbeet, I'm using a wok. You can do this in a regular pan. Place it over a medium-high heat. Add in 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Add in the garlic as well as the silverbeet or Swiss chard. Saute this or stir fry it for about 2 to 3 minutes until it starts to soften up a little bit. I do recommend keeping it moving so we don't brown it off too much, as well as making sure that garlic doesn't burn. Add in 1/4 cup of water or stock. Don't use the stock that we've been making though, it's too powerful. This is going to create steam and help soften the silverbeet. And continue stir frying this for a couple more minutes until it's soft, it's wilted and cooked through. We do want it to be slightly al dente and then just keep it warm for the time being. Going back to our chicken, it's been cooking away for 14 minutes. Carefully remove it from the oven. Be sure to use a towel or an oven mitt because that handle will be roasting hot. Place it over a medium heat, then add in 1 tablespoon of butter, a couple of sprigs of thyme, sprig of rosemary and 2 cloves of crushed garlic. Then baste the chicken for about a minute or 2 or until an internal temperature of 74 degrees Celsius or 165 degrees Fahrenheit. The chicken broth or chicken jus can also be removed from the stovetop. It's really intensified, it's reduced down. Double check it for seasoning and adjust accordingly. For serving, I do recommend using a high-rimmed plate for this. Spread the mash out. This recipe will serve 2 people. Once the mash is down, we can add over the Swiss chard or the silverbeet. Place that seared chicken, that beautiful looking chicken, over the top. Then finally, top it with the sauce, pour it all around the edge, a little bit over the chicken, a little bit over the mash, and it is supposed to create that pull on the bottom of the plate, and it's not supposed to be thick. This is exactly how you want it. And seriously though, how good does that dish look?
So with all of that said and done, there is only one thing left to do, and that is of course we can then dig in. Yes. Oh wow. Oh, so good. Honestly, that is one of the best dishes I've made in a very long time. Restaurant worthy, it's absolutely incredible, and it's so easy to make at home as well. Just a simple chicken, you don't even have to have the bone in, the supreme or the supreme. Just use a regular chicken breast, ask your butcher to get some skin on, but it goes so well together. That mash is silky smooth, the broth is absolutely incredible, then the greens just fill it out a little bit. It just really is a beautiful dish. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.